Welcome to It Began in the Basement. I'm Megan.
I'm Laura.
And today we're going to talk about campiness in general, comics, beer.
Comics and beer and how all of that mushes together.
Yes.
So what should we begin with? The saga of teenagers at the Steak and Shake, or actually going to that no one actually planned for that really cool event, but we got a ton of beer out of the deal?
Let's do that one. Let's do that second one. So I made you watch Puppet Master.
Yes.
I didn't really think you were paying attention, but apparently you were.
Yes.
Because you messaged me on Facebook, and it was just a picture of an event where the author and illustrator of the new comic book were going to be doing a visit at New Dimension Comics, and I was very excited.
I personally love finding out about events that way, because if they don't really promote it over Facebook, you almost get a guarantee that you will get some one-on-one time with that content creator. Wish we got to talk to him a little bit more.
I didn't really want to bother them either. It's in a really cute comic book store. I'm not sure how many comic book stores want to be known as, oh my god, they're so cute. But
that voice, though.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Oh my god, the most adorable comic book shop in the whole wide world. It's a very nice comic book store.
We totally got the last of the beer.
Did we get the last of the beer?
I remember hearing something about that. We got some of the last
I think
of the
we
beer.
got some of the last of the beer. So the whole event was this limited edition cover, which I'm very excited to read carefully with gloved hands because I don't want to mess up my comic book.
Yep, good way to be.
But when you got the comic book, there was also a beer that went with it.
I thought that was kind of great. You don't really think of those pairings very often.
It was paired with the beer, yeah. Which I will never drink because I'm not a beer drinker. I'll just have it up on my comic book shelf wherever. And
that's fine.
Yeah.
That, you will be that person that has
the
beer.
I am that person.
The beer.
I have the beer and the comic book, very gently put in there.
I saved my bottles of Game of Thrones beer. I think it is very cool that we got to meet a comic book writer like Sean Gabarine. I wasn't previously familiar with his work, but I got to go to the Pocono Comic Expo back in April, and that was the first one in that area, and it was held at a country club, and seeing cosplayers in contrast with golf players, that was very, very fun. The artist that I met there was that same smaller scale, very approachable, very chill. He seemed like a pretty cool person, and I wish I had the emotional awareness or mental awareness to stick around and talk longer. Cause
I didn't want to interrupt them either. They were very polite. It was nice. And I could talk about all my love for Puppet Master for hours, but also I didn't know about Action Lab Comics. And I didn't...
Their logo is adorable.
Oh, it's so cute.
It is I will buy all your comics just for the logo. No
There's
shame.
another thing. Comic book shop, so cute. Action Lab Comics logo, so cute.
There's the Action Lab logos on the beer.
So yeah, it was
great.
Sean Gabarine and Chad Ciccone.
Yes.
And Chad Ciccone did the artwork for the beer
for
and
the beer
then
label,
for the variation cover on this. And I didn't know that the series had run this long, so now I have to go back and buy it.
I think it was totally worth it, and I just absolutely love going out and supporting more independent artists that, honestly.
I hate dolls and puppets. I hate them. But were I ever to get a movie prop from that series, I would happily display it in my home. That's how much I love it.
See, and that is totally fair.
My horrific phobia of dolls and puppets to have
that is
a piece
very interesting because to me, obviously you are the one to show me the Puppet Master, so that is part of how I know you. Every person you know, it's a sum total of your experiences with that person, so you're the one to show me the Puppet Master. But now that I know that you actually have a phobia of puppets and dolls and stuff that, that's an interesting juxtaposition.
Oh yeah, one of my worst experiences was in middle school. I had a sleepover with one of my friends, and I got to her house, and when we went to go to bed, I didn't realize this when I got there. I would have made a call and left. All around the top of her room was a shelf, and there were old Victorian dolls.
No thank you.
Every inch, all the way around, as I slept on the floor and just stared up at their terrifying glassy eyes that lit up every time a car went by.
No thank you.
Yeah, no, I made it through, but it's just one of those nights where eventually you don't realize when you fell asleep, you just kind of pass out and wake up with a start the next morning.
I do not have a phobia of puppets or dolls to speak of, but I remember falling asleep at my childhood best friend's house, and around the Christmas time they would have this specific type of doll, I can't remember the name of it, but they're pretty iconic, once you see it, you know it kind of deal. And there were nights where I thought I saw them moving, because it's, shadows and active kid imaginations, but those specific dolls, I'm no.
Yeah.
Lucky for me, my mother and no one else really I know bothers to decorate. So hey, because I'm lazy.
Okay, let me tell you the origin of my phobia.
Uh, yes,
It's story time.
with Megan.
So, when I was little, remember how Teddy Ruxpin was a big thing in the 80s and the
Hmm.
90s? Like, we had all those. Well, Disney made knockoffs of them that were like Mickey and Goofy, and I think there were a couple other ones as well. You'd put the tape in them and they'd play. And they had animatronic faces, they would talk, and they would blink. And I wasn't afraid of them when I was really little, but I think when I was like 9 or 10, they started to just freak me out. And they were in the basement, and I had a lot of toys. I was an only child. I had lots of things. And there was this pile of stuffed animals, and they were there. And sometimes, like, they'd have a little book open or something like that. And they just started to freak me out, and I started side-eyeing them. And I think I told my parents, which was a huge mistake.
Oh, always.
That
Always,
they creep
especially
me out.
dads. Especially dads. My dad. Anyway.
So my parents started placing the dolls around the house.
Oh my god.
Like sitting on the toilet or like playing my Nintendo or like sitting in the car or like my favorite was when it was just tucked under my covers and I could just see the outline of it in my closet all over the place. And I would scream when I would see them and they would giggle. And so as an adult, I remember being belligerent at my dad for something and just being like, this all started when you and mom had Mickey and Goofy around the house to scare me and it's all your fault. And my dad said, actually, I wanted to stop. It was your mother who got a kick out of it.
Okay. This is a really odd, bizarre defense of parents everywhere, but I feel like this is a raising your child tax. Like they need to take the tax out of the kid, and like they feed and house and clothe you for like minimum 18 years. And it sounds like you have a really good relationship with your parents.
I do now. Maybe that's the secret. Maybe you just have to torture your child for like a small amount of time.
For how many times your kid probably, even the best behaved kid, has meltdowns in public.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure there is a like raising your child tax, even if it's like messing with them. I remember one year, when my dad was still working for Home Depot, I was probably a preteen at this point, and by then he'd shaved off all his hair because he had a receding hairline, like whatever. And he shaved off all his facial hair, including his eyebrows, to go in as a demon to work. When he came home, when he left that day, he looked normal. When he came home and he walked in the living room, I stared at him and I still remember how my body felt. It felt like my stomach fell out through like the bottoms of my feet because I looked at him and I did not recognize him at all. And I have that specific memory and it's just, and I looked at him and mom's like, it's fine, like it's your dad. And he just made a face and was like, huh! Like I went in the other room, like I couldn't be in the same room as him. If memory served. Yeah. And I could tell my dad just like got a kick out of it. I'm like, Dad. Okay, so going to this event and getting to meet these guys I think was rather cool. Any of the events that I've been to, conventions and stuff, when artists are there and you find artists that, are actually approachable and are genuinely cool people.
Oh, and they totally were. It was really nice.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's also part of the thing that I love about authors so much, especially ones that I've worked with in the past. When creators of art, content, whatever, are friendly, that makes me as a consumer remember, and I will be infinitely more likely to buy some future product.
Oh yeah, and I'm one of those people too who are like, I bought this thing and the people were there and they were really nice, so now I need to get all the things because they were really nice.
I have gotten fantasy series based on that. Again, creators are nice and they go out of their way to do cool things. I want to support them, and I think money speaks volumes, because when you don't support artists, then cool stuff doesn't get made. And I think that's kind of the neat thing about platforms like Kickstarter and Patreon, because it's not the third-party companies that are controlling, like with the Puppet Master comic series that you looked up and you saw 18 issues of.
Yeah, well now I have to buy them.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not the definitive big houses that say, well, there's not really demand for that. It's like, oh, there's a niche fan base. There's money to be made here.
Well, and when you are working on a smaller scale, because I'm an artist, I've done a lot of t-shirt art, I've done a lot of print work. Right now I'm doing artwork for an RPG, which I'll be able to sell the prints of, which is nice.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
Meeting people in person is always the best. Like, I've been on both sides of the table. I'm not famous at all, but sometimes people remember who I am, and that's pretty cool.
Yep.
But yeah, being friendly is the best part. And sometimes people legitimately cannot afford to buy your stuff. But they will remember you, and I have had people come back later, like a year later, to my table and be like, I couldn't buy something last year, but now I got a good job. So can I get a commission from you?
Yes, exactly. I've talked to a number of authors about that, where it's basically like they may not be able to afford something now, but or they may not buy something now, but they will remember you and they will
Mm-hmm.
tell other people about you, and that might be future sales, and then they will eventually come back
Mm-hmm.
around, to buy something from
Yeah.
you in the future. So it's like it is a sale that is made in the future. And also, just what drives me nuts about artists and writers that just kind of treat their fan bases beneath them, you're alienating yourself from your future earning potential. Even that aside, it doesn't take very much effort to just be
No.
passingly nice to people. You don't have to go above and beyond. Just
Mm-mm.
smile, say hi, just how are you? And be polite
Mm-hmm.
and just
Be
fix it
into the
after 5
thing that
minutes.
they are into. Talking to Sean today was
Mhm.
nice because we can both nerd out about Puppet Master. And it's a weird series that's got kind of a little bit of cult fame to it. I'm always thrilled when I meet new people who know what it is.
Right.
Because normally I rattle off 12 things and everybody knows what Texas Chainsaw Massacre is. Everybody knows Halloween. But when I bring up Ginger Snaps or American Mary, not as many people know about those.
Right.
They're so good. So that's painful. And I talk to people and I try to get all pumped about these things. And
Yeah.
like, people even know about Human Centipede. I have watched all 3, by the way.
I'm so sorry.
It makes a statement.
I don't know what kind of statement.
I think a lot of it is pointing out tropes in horror as well.
That might be a good point. The last movie that I could actually sit down and watch, though, was anything remotely like that. I did see the first Human Centipede, which was a huge blasé, kind of like whatever for me. Somebody was streaming a Serbian film, and I just, like, it was like 2 in the morning, and I was in college, and it was like close to finals week, so I'm like on no sleep, and I'm like, what am I watching? Looking back on it, I'm like, there was absolutely no point. It wasn't even like fun to watch, really. It was just like Puppet Master for me, like as a brand new experience, camp and 80s, and I'm like, yes, I'm all about
These
this.
are a few of my favorite things.
Yes, more of this, please.
And the acting, pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good. Like, you can tell they're enjoying themselves.
So much aggressive forehead and aggressive hair.
There was aggressive hair going on in there. But yeah, I love it. The women in it were not passive. That is one of the things I liked about it. Oddly enough, probably not the first thing you think about when you think of, like, campy horror. Because usually, unless you're the virgin in a lot of horror, you don't survive.
Yeah, that is very true. What do you think makes the campiness of Puppet Master work in comparison to, like, just downright 0 out of 10 would not watch movies?
I think it's the effects. It's a nice combination of beautifully done stop motion and actual puppets and a tiny person in a costume.
That I absolutely
which is
adored.
Great. So it's the combination of the 3. Sometimes when you have straight up puppets that are not animatronic, that very clearly have the border around the frame where a hand or whatever has to be, it can take you out of it a little bit.
Right.
And stop motion's not an easy medium.
No, not at all.
So
so much time.
Yeah, so much time. I really do respect that. The location is gorgeous.
Yeah.
That they have for it, which is nice. Even though it's probably keeping it less expensive. It's mostly one location.
Yep.
They have like a shot of a professor's office, a carnival, the research center, and then this gorgeous hotel.
That could all be the same location.
It could all be the same location.
Yep.
So I think that's a big part of it. It's easy to immerse yourself in the world of it. And I think that's a big thing. With campiness, you're in this weird place where you're immersed in the world of it. It doesn't take itself too seriously either.
There's an element of absurdism.
Yes. Yes, I agree exactly. That's what it is. So, like, you're in it, but you realize, you know what you're in for. You know it's going to be kind of goofy, but that's fun.
As I get older, and what I love about camp personally is this is a thing that sort of pokes fun at itself, but it's great because you can tell the people who made the movie still took the process of making the movie seriously. Like, they still invested themselves and their time and their energy into it. Campiness is just a lot of fun, and I'm totally down for gore and absurd stuff.
But there's a difference. Like, have you seen Cannibal Holocaust?
I have not.
It is a lot of the gore without any of the fun. The fun thing about that, though, is I believe people thought the director actually murdered the actors in it.
Really?
Yeah, it's a movie. It's about people who go to film, like, this cannibal tribe, and they end up getting horribly maimed and eaten in a very realistic way. And after it was done, the director had the actors go into hiding for a year. And he ended up getting accused of murdering them, so they had to, like, come out and say they were alive again.
Why did he have them go into hiding?
They were shooting it like it was a documentary.
Oh
Like, it
god.
was like a found footage documentary. It's
Oh.
just so brutal though. Like
Yeah.
it's rough. Like I can deal with a lot of people-y stuff because I know that's not real. I know they're not really throwing an actor off a balcony most of the time. But there's actual animal killing in the movie, which is disturbing.
Yeah.
And just the amount of violence, and it takes away for the fun for me. Like I like my gore like cilantro, just a little, just a garnish.
That's a
Otherwise,
very good way of putting
thank
it.
you. Because otherwise it takes me out of it. Or I get really hungry because when I see that much hamburger, I just want to eat one. And that will also take
that is
me.
one reaction, certainly.
Yes, that will also take me out of the experience.
Huh.
So yeah, the perfect amount of gore is enough to make you go ew without being like, oh my god, are we done yet?
For me, I think the gore that actually I'm okay with sitting and watching to the point where I can enjoy it is cartoonish, just over the top. You know, if it's painfully realistic, like I get that visceral, like I'm not gonna say I can't because that's not it. It's just your body has that sympathetic response. And for me that's not part of an enjoyable viewing experience. Not really anyway.
Nightmare on Elm Street, when you've got like Freddy pulling somebody into the bed and there's like a fountain of blood gushing out. Like it's over the top cartoonish. And that's like doesn't bother me at all.
But that's the thing, it's over the top of cartoonish.
Yeah.
It's not
like Hostel, where you're watching like a guy stare into the face of his dead best friend.
Yeah.
No. That's a bit much for me.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of these series where they get infinite sequels. One of my favorite movies, Hellraiser.
Right. Yeah.
Love it. First one, great. Second one, pretty much part 2. Third one, not so good. You get into that like dip with a lot of these series where the middle ones, if you're not a fan of the series, you're wasting your time and you're almost looking for cameos of your favorite characters. And there's one of the Hellraiser series that's so far down the line where the entire thing is just a hallucination, which is infuriating. I'm here for the Cenobites, okay? That's it.
I don't get that kind of thing at all. Say you have a series, the first 2 movies are like solid, like it's solid base, and you have the repeated elements of what worked, and then you just gradually migrate away from that instead of trying to reinterpret it in new ways or explore it in different ways. It's like the fucking ending of Lost. It's fucking insulting. Like, that might be a little extreme, but it's like insulting.
You have become a fan of this thing.
Right.
And I understand the need to progress the story. You need to keep it going. And that a lot of these franchises, too, eventually, like movie 4 or 5, they'll bring back somebody from the first movie.
Right.
Like in Hellraiser, the main female protagonist ends up coming back in a later one. And it's okay, but merely okay. If it was a dream, I don't give a shit. If it was a hallucination,
it's lazy.
It's lazy.
It's lazy. It's intellectually lazy. When I find that type of thing in a horror book, for example, I automatically disengage. Like everything that I previously thought was frightening, for example, I'm just like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I don't care. It is intellectually
now,
lazy.
Of course, Freddy Krueger gets away with the dream stuff.
But that is an
But it has consequences, though.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. The dreams in that pertain to reality. Like, it's not just you wake up and it's over and everything's fine, because then it takes the drama and the danger and the consequences out of it. And I realize that in some ways, it just leaves it open for you to continue the series. And people do tackle these in different ways. A lot of these films have different directors and writers down the line. They just are carrying on the franchise name. But do it justice.
Bingo.
Like, if it is a thing you actually love, and a thing, instead of a thing you are trying to exploit, to, like, make a couple bucks off of hardcore fans, really work at this.
That is a good point. How many of these disappointing sequels are just somebody trying to make a quick buck, which I'm not a fan of, but can I say that I wouldn't do the same thing in their shoes? Ideally, no.
Ideally, no.
But...
And in some ways, I wonder... I know that you can eventually lose your license, I think, for it.
Yes, probably.
So you pop out a new whatever just to make sure you don't lose your copyright on it, if I recall. Is that right?
With licensing, I think I know licenses have to undergo a period of renewal. I don't know if it's like once a year or how it's written.
Why, like, the Marvel thing is so screwed up. Why you've got two people.
Oh, yeah. Fox is fucked.
Oh, yeah.
Because their actors are out of contract. Assloads of them are. So for them to try to keep up with with funding comic book movies, oh boy, that's fun. So, yeah, no, Fox is fucked. I'm also just fucking exhausted of superhero movies.
Oh,
I never go to
Okay, well, here's the question. Do you consider Hellboy a superhero movie?
Mm-mm.
No?
Anti-hero.
Anti-hero movie?
Yep. Because for me, I can't remember his name, but the one pissant guy that nobody likes, but they wind up bonding
Oh
over
yeah,
lighting a
yeah,
cigar the
yeah,
proper way, right? Can't
yeah.
remember his name. I should look it up, but I'm too lazy
Mm-hmm.
right now. He said before that moment, he basically points out, he says, you can defeat every monster out there, but it's still gonna be you. Like, no matter how much
Mm-hmm.
Hellboy tries to fit into the system is inherently against him.
Mm-hmm.
His job is to save people, his job is to put down the monster, but that's not who he is as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, to me, that's a huge difference. You know, he has hero-like qualities, but he is a giant red man-child, and that is why I love him so much,
Mm-hmm.
personally.
And I mean, I do like the movies quite a bit, but I like the comic books so much better. And I know that's such a hipster nerd thing to say,
But the
but the
comics
comics are
are
so good.
good. I don't agree with all of Del Toro's decisions with the Hellboy movies, but this is gonna sound really cheesy, so I'm gonna beg you to bear with me. Hellboy came out in April of 2004.
Oh my
I still
god.
have that Hellboy poster, that's why I remember
Oh
that.
god, I think I was
420 2004.
graduating high school.
I think it was like 420
Yeah.
2004. I was 16 then. And that was like, I was like a spooky, like leaning towards spooky
Yeah.
things. And then I saw Hellboy, and that just ignited my imagination because that effectively blends maybe 3 or 4 different genres, or at least the elements of them. And it's, you have your nitty-gritty fight scenes, you have your person-to-person story arcs, but then you have the Urdu Jihad as the Lovecraftian cosmic horror. And I just, interweaving all of that together, I thought that was great.
Well, and
Punch a
it's
Little
the
Town.
monster mashup, which I like so much, because you have that versus the Van Helsing movie, which was such a disappointment for as beautiful as it was.
The writers weren't there.
The writers weren't there. Like, that's the difference with movies where you have characters that you can relate to, characters you would actually want to get to know as people. Like, if you could sit down with Hellboy and have a beer, or
that would be like the coolest
go
thing.
book shopping with Abe Sapien, great. But in Van Helsing, everyone is so weird and distanced that you can't really get into them.
You don't actually have a legit reason ever to care about those characters.
No, you don't.
Not
and then I'm
all.
sorry, when you see somebody doing battle in a corset, you're just like, Jesus, not again.
I'm so sorry for your ribs.
Yeah.
I just personally, like, corsets are beautiful,
They
but
are beautiful.
no, at the same
Not
time.
generally for combat. The werewolves in that, mwah, perfect. I loved them. They were beautiful. However, terrible movie.
I want to send, not actually, but I want to send the CGI team, like, a beautiful basket of thank you for doing your job
if
very
they still
well.
have a job. A lot of CGI companies go out of business.
Really?
Yeah, because they're bidding to do the effects for these movies. The people who did Life of Pi, that tanked them because they ended up being the lowest bidder. You can't actually do it for that amount of money, and then you're belly up. You do a beautiful movie, you get paid, it's not enough, you don't have enough to continue your studio.
I'm not going to ask any questions on how Weta is still in business.
I don't know. Well, not that I don't know in like a negative way. Like, all I know is that there are a number of companies that
go belly up.
But I don't know if part of that might have also been they had contracts for multiple movies.
That's true. True. Back to your point about having characters that you actually like and that you actually engage with, like the women in the Puppet Master don't take things lying down, like the one fight scene where she is struggling to stay alive.
For several, in any other horror movie, she should have escaped.
But she was clawing and she was going down swinging. But even with Hellboy, like, yes, you have those personal characters, but you still have that element of absurdism, and I think that is the common thread we're seeing here. It's very good absurdism. I think my favorite scene in Hellboy overall is probably when Myers is first getting introduced and Clay, the other agent, wheels in this cart that's full of waffles and bacon and stuff, and you walk in and Hellboy has kittens everywhere, and he's... I'm probably mixing up a couple scenes there, but that general gist of, you get the overarch of...
It is somebody that you would hang out with, and you probably wouldn't want as your roommate, but you could hang out with.
Oh yeah, like, totally be, like, best friends with that person, you know?
So it's this level of approachableness that camp can have.
Right.
That I like. It isn't taking itself too seriously, and I think that back to Van Helsing, that was a big problem with it. It was taking itself super duper seriously.
It was like Hot Topic 15-year-old, but Mom, this isn't a phase, this is my life, like, level taking itself seriously, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my god, you lost me. When I first saw Van Helsing, I was Hugh Jackman. I was like stoked, and then I sat down and I'm like, oh my.
I know. Like, I remember seeing the opening scene of that and being so excited when you've got Frankenstein's monster and you've got this crowd of people, and you're like, great introduction.
Frankenstein was done pretty well in that
He
movie,
was.
I thought.
But not everyone's acting chops were up to speed on that.
Oh yeah, Frankenstein's monster, I should say.
Yeah.
I absolutely love endeavors that want to combine a bunch of Penny Dreadful monsters.
Or if you go back even further, like Young Frankenstein.
Right.
Campy, horror, comedy, perfect. That is a perfect movie.
3 genres.
Yeah.
Just fucking mush them together.
It's perfect. Everyone is trying, but they're having a good time.
That, I think also that's a huge part of it too. Even though Puppet Master, you can obviously tell, like, it is a horror movie, I feel like certain movies have this energy to them, whether it's in the actor's chemistry or something like that. Like, you can tell these actors or these staff enjoyed working on that movie, and it communicates itself to the viewer.
Or at least it appears that they did.
Yes, exactly. And I'm like, even if it's fucking bullshit, I'm absolutely, like, I'm being had, and I'm okay with that because this is very fun to watch.
I love horror movies, even the campy ones, but I don't like the bad ones, of which there are many. There's different degrees of bad. Puppet Master is a solid B movie.
And you know what? I think a solid B or a solid C movie, there is a lot to be said for that, because if it does what it does well, there is a whole level of awesome, I think, that's attached to that.
Yes.
Because movies that take themselves super seriously and then therefore they sound like they're preaching and are more horrible as a result. Navel gazing, I think, is the best term for that, and Puppet Master was definitely not that.
It is in no
which
way
was
taking
great.
itself seriously.
Yeah.
Like, it starts with Nazis trying to find an old magical man who makes puppets come to life.
The whole Nazi occultism bent, totally fitting.
Oh, yeah.
Totally fitting. And I thought that was a great way to start the movie, like, honestly.
The series is, first one's very good, the second one, and then it kind of does a dip in the middle, and it pulls itself back out, and then it drops way down again for Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys.
Right. So that makes me wonder and want to ask the question to you, what is the line between campy for the sake of being fun and being aware of its own campiness, even if you could say that, and I feel like with Puppet Master you can absolutely say that, versus just being downright bad? Like, there is a definite clear line, I think, that separates those two things. What do you think separates them?
Well, I mean, in the Puppet Master series, because there are a lot of them, varies in quality per installment. Because the first one's very good, the second one not so much. You go down the line, and then suddenly it picks up again, and it's great. And it's very well done. They go back in time, but it works. And it does. It kind of combines Nazis, puppets, semi-accurate World War II.
Hey, that's all I can really ask for in the movies.
And characters you actually care about. The Puppet Master and his wife are nice people. And you find out as you go through the series, so spoilers if anyone hasn't seen it, that the puppets are inhabited by the souls of people that Andre Toulon, the Puppet Master, knew in Nazi Germany. And that is how he saved them.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's worth watching, because when you get more of the lore in there, and that's, I think, also a really fun thing with horror movies, if you do have a string of them and you build on that lore, you almost feel like you're in this, like, super secret knowledge club.
Yep.
But, like, I have sat through all 8 of these. I know every detail. I will never watch, numbers, whatever and whatever, ever again. But I did it. I get my badge of completion.
I personally, not necessarily horror movies specifically, but effective universe building. It's keeping, for the first movie or first book, for example, keeping that tight focus. Like, let me think. Like, I feel like the first Hellboy quote-unquote graphic novel, because it's the first X amount of issues, so I'll just call it a graphic novel because that's what it is. It's you get that tight focus, and I think it's super important. And it's as soon as the reader or the viewer has that established, they know what to expect from this universe, and just continuing to build on that. That is just so much fun, because it is a whole other, like, you're just learning, and it's just a whole other experience. And I think that's, if you feel like you're being lectured at, like, no, obviously that's no fun for anybody. But again, like you get something new out of it with everything that you
Mm-hmm.
watch, even if the movie is a complete disaster. But then the next one might be good. I'd also
Mm-hmm.
be curious now to look at the names of the directors on the Puppet Master movies to see who
Mm-hmm.
really picked it back up. And I'm wondering if there's any
Yeah.
like if
I'm
it was
just
a
gonna make
director.
you watch all of them.
Well, I'm wondering if the director that really picked the
Mm-hmm.
franchise back up by its bootstraps was one that maybe had worked on the project previously in its better days and they had brought him back. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
The one where they do go back to Germany is also one with beautiful production value. That is the other thing. It just looks good. And with a lot of horror, it doesn't always have to look good if you've got a decent cast that can kind of carry it. But it helps. And just having elements of creepiness and a little bit of humor always seems to help. That's what I like about the horror genre, is it's not afraid to be funny. And the moments that are funny usually genuinely are. And they might actually just be ad-libbed in a lot of cases. Tobe Hooper, who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre, before that he did The Funhouse, which was the movie I was going to show you until I couldn't find my Blu-ray player.
Oh, that
the
puts a
one.
slight damper on things.
Yeah, so I have to show you that one. Mostly one location. It's set in a carnival.
Mm.
I believe they built most of it on a sound stage. But it's a small cast, again, which I like because I can keep track of people. A lot of modern day horror, I'm really not good at faces. So if you have two girls who are the same weight and are both blonde, I will mix them up constantly. If they're about the same size, same blonde hair, I don't know, you're both going to be dead soon anyway, so...
Well, I mean, that is true, really. But yeah, no, that's interesting.
But yeah, so small cast, solid plot, which is another thing that I think keeps campy movies fun. When you can tell what happens, because there's a difference between camp that's still enjoyable and is a solid B movie and movies that are just kind of all over the place. You lost the plot, you don't know what's happening, it's over, and you're not sure why.
Yes, I think that's definitely a good way of putting it. Basically, Campiness knows the house it lives in, whereas other movies that go off the rails are just a dumpster fire. They keep throwing wood into the dumpster.
More of them and put them on direct to DVD release. It'll be fine. Well, I think you're going out to make a campy movie. Mm-hmm. Aside from there's like some movies that are not trying to do that and they end up doing it anyway with varying degrees of frustration. They try to make a super serious movie and it's so goofy despite itself. And when you're looking at your own creation, that's very different than other people looking at it. Because if you've labored on this movie and you tried to make this super serious piece of work and then other people look at it and get giggly.
And I think also Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Perfect movie.
Oh my god. Tucker and Dale versus Evil is a good example of horror and comedy mixed together, obviously. But when somebody's working on that project, whether it's team of writers, director, hard to say, that they know the genre well enough to play to its strengths while making fun of it at the same time. And I feel like Puppet Master, there are definitely elements of that in there. Campy movies, it knows the house it lives in, but it's also a love letter.
Yes.
To certain tropes in the genre, maybe.
Or certain specific movies, which is always fun when you catch little bits of movies in them.
Yes. I now wish there was Monty Python Does Horror, because I would watch the shit out of that. Oh god, those guys are amazing.
Any campy movies that come to mind to kind of wrap this up? That if you could pick one, Desert Island, just one campy movie to watch over and over again, which would it be?
I'm gonna give you the most predictable answer. From me on the face of the planet, you're probably gonna punch me in the tit for it. Mystery Science Theater 3000, The Touch of Satan. I'm
good, though.
sorry.
It was.
It's
long as hell, too.
Yeah, and there's, only a quarter of it has dialogue. I feel like. I mean, because there's all those silences.
That's true.
Mystery Science Theater 3000, The Touch of Satan. Because that 70s Satan is best Satan. The beginning of the satanic panic.
Yeah.
This is where the fucking goddamn it. Okay. What about you?
Ginger Snaps was a movie I watched obsessively for a good long time. It was a movie where it would end, and I would just put it back in and play it again.
What did you like so much about that movie?
Female protagonists, and the entire theme of it is it menstruation or lycanthropy? That's the movie. That could be its tagline. We can watch it whenever. I've got all three. There's three of them.
Yes.
Yeah, all three of them are pretty good.
That is fantastic.
Alternately, Silent Hill, the first one.
Yes. I like that one.
There's a lot of details in it. It is trying to take itself maybe a little more seriously than it should,
Yeah.
but
No, I liked it though.
I did like
overall.
it. The second one was awful.
Shocker. News at 11.
Yeah, News at 11. But I also wonder if that was just so they could keep the title. Like, we have to make these every once in a while to make sure we hold on to the franchise.
I would bet my bottom dollar that some of these movies are just license renewal obligation of some kind or another.
But my only wish, and we will close out on this note, is that if you are somebody who is gifted a series to continue to keep the license going, put your heart and soul into it, or give it to someone who actually genuinely enjoys the subject matter.
Yes, your name is on the movie, but you know how ghostwriting is a thing?
It's a
ghost directing.
Yeah, for horror movies. That's
I mean, if you have a friend that's like, holy shit, you got this right, like, just guide them, but like, just as long as you get paid at the end of the day, who cares? Like, whatever.
And we may be in for even more interesting things, because now you probably don't even have to do direct-to-DVD releases. You can do direct-to-digital download, which means you can keep your costs lower and your distribution wider.
Yep. Welcome to the future of the internet.
I'm okay with that. I'm really looking forward to digging through the massive piles of terrible movies to find the gems.
I'm going to cut this out later, future episode idea. Maybe horror movies that make you ask the question, is it like menstruation or lycanthropy? Because like Taking Deborah Logan, I personally enjoy that one because is it dementia or is she like actually possessed?
Was it bodily function or paranormal
the
experience?
The Babadook is also another good example of that one. Because again, psychiatry and horror, and not take like psychological horror is great, but like this woman has dementia. This is obvious, but there's also the fine line to be walked of demonizing the mentally ill.
Yes, and scary movie too.
What, Taking Deborah Logan?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
In that fucking cave, I'd be like, well, tough shit for that kid.
I'm out.
I'm
Take
out.
A nap.
Sorry.
Hiding behind the door.
Whatever.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that might be a neat
That'd be a good one.
Do.
Yeah, it would be bodily function or paranormal experience.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. Because, I mean, it takes very
well. Then we could also talk about exorcisms.
Oh my god.
Anyway, let's wrap this
up.
The
best book for exorcisms says literal exorcisms in the Bible.
Ooh.
I got it, the Caliban book.
Exorcisms would be a good topic. I think that about wraps it up. Thank you for listening to It Began in the Basement. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Podbean under It Began in the Basement. Hope to see you next week.